Before the beginning of time, he was bored. He spent his days eating universes that the adults made and seemingly forgotten. Sometimes he would even throw suns at big rocks, and that would end in a quite flashy pop. Obviously, he was bored. The demon kids had grown old of galactic battles with him. There was nothing to do. Nothing that he cannot do. After all, he was a god. The great gods, the old ones, were busy doing weird things, watching and hovering over zillion dimensions and creating more of them, for no reason at all. They granted him, their boy, with only enough powers to create universes and fool around. Dimensions were too complex for him. Maybe when he would reach adolescence, he would try a hand in them. That was utter unfairness, he thought. It was when he was showing symptoms of depression that Emphy came to him with an idea for cheering him up, although she had some personal interests. Emphy was a goddess of empathy, the power which the adults weren't able to attain. I heard you were soaring through pretty dark phase. I got an idea that will let you out of this daze, she said. What? I'm not in mood, Emphy. Oh, cheer up, young one. At my castle on the tangerine wall, there's a wish carved with knife that before vanishing I want to make free life. Make life? What do you mean? He was really not in mood for anything, typical teen god, but the word life caught his fancy. You know, making something that breathes and does things that it wants to do, supposedly a planet that's so tiny with some things weak and some shiny. Emphy, I have made monsters in past. They are hard to handle and it's no fun. Oh gods these days. Those monsters were puppets, shadows of your mind, strung to your hands. They were the old kind. I say, just for a nice show, why don't we make something and let go? Letting go? That's forbidden. Existence without authority. It is, the great one said. The great ones say many things. They certainly have got old and grumpy. They hop and loop around dimensions, making sure everything stays calculated and in order. But what if, just for fun, we free that control just once? Our young god was not able to see it all, but Emphy's word did crack the walls he thought in. He was on the brink of feeling the freedom of the Force. Unique beings on unique lands, yellow lights, yellow sands. He then exhaled, a planet free, so blue with foolish, naive insects, but with no authority. Life. He was now feeling it. Let's do this. After an eternity later, he was in invigoration. But before the creation clay we may find, and after we create the new kind. Creation clay, as the name states, were used to create literally everything. Dimensions, universes, wormholes, everything. They took a very small portion of the clay, as big as the dust of dust. They did so because if the adults found a free being, they would immediately eradicate it. Only if the being is small as this, it can survive for a while. What shall we name it? Said Emphy. The god scratched his brows and stared into the abyss of the space and said, Earth. They made it blue and added a bit of green. It looked incredibly lively. They found it an appropriate spot where it can get ample of light. The god took care of the planet's guidelines of rotation and revolution, the boring stuff. Then, with specks of dust, of dusts of the clay, they started making lives. The design resembled that of the gods, head, legs, hand. But of course, they were wonderfully weak and astonishingly foolish. They also added some small animals here and there for garnishing. Then came the finale. The god gulped in the thought of adults' rage if in case they came to know. Are we really going to do this? Yes. It's about smiling. About smiling? Oh, just free them. The god then, with a wave of vivid lights, slashed the strings and released Earth and its children from its control. They could now hear them breathing. They left it for a while, a couple of million years, and then they sauntered there to check. Of course, they, from their godly size, had to change into much smaller forms. But when they got there, instead of finding green and blue vast, they found grey lands with people with no purpose under the sun. Humans, they decided to call the inhabitants of Earth that had destroyed all the green and blue. Disappointment and disdain they felt at first, but then clarity and realization. Oh, young one, their duty should be to prevent the beauty. Okay, but I cannot control them, remember? We can only change them. How do we make them do this? Vulnerability. Humans need weakness and mortality so they don't end up swallowing the earth. So they gave them hunger, a constant need to intake the green thing, which they named plants, and the blue thing, which they named water. They also added aspiratory needs and trees and water power to fulfill it. In the conclusion of this remodeling, they made everything into a cycle of deliberate birth and death, so that energy in entities and species of the earth do not rot and get transferred and get purified. And due to pleadings of Emphy and to prevent humans from dying from absurdist thoughts, they were blessed with the most prosperous and destructive gift: ambition. Again they left it and waited for a while. They planned to visit again. This time the god was eccentric. Last time he felt this way was back then, when one of his galactic serpents ate some galaxies and vomited over the other ones. They went down its atmosphere and witnessed something that transcended heaven and dimensions of God, old and new. Stretch of colors that mirrored the multiverse was seen from the mountaintop. Cold gusts like heaven and heat like hell's basement. Everything could be felt. Trees and waters were secure and productively used, but the beauty was overshadowed by dull men and women, sheep, puppets without strings, but acting as in control of something. Each faces the same, each action the same, like a play replaying over and over. What a disgrace. May I get rid of them just to keep the earth? No, not at all. They became like this, I don't know how, but I understand. I get it. I get it now. God respected Emphy for her age and powers, so decided to give it one more try. What did you get now, Emphy? Well, said Emphy, it's a bit funky, the idea. And indeed it was. They became vibrant. Since every being now acted the same, they individually had to customize them. As a result, they all got different powers. Those powers were as good as jokes. Some got intellect, some got witty, some got fast legs, and some long life. Some were greater fools, but no biological flaw. Each one had a different taste, a different sight. They became like infinite shades of infinite color, like there were neon lights beneath their skin. God and Emphy then took a breath of satisfaction for their one-of-a-kind experiment being success. It was then the same old schedule. They waited for the same old time, and then with hope for seeing a progressive civilization with enough flaws that mankind needs to get rid of. But more importantly, a civilization that smiles. But instead, they got seas of blood and tears. There was a civilization, sure, but its building was made of bricks, of crushed children's skull. Shelters of literal flesh, men as monarchs, pretending as gods and dancing a moronic dance on the sweats of slaves. Celebrating victories of conquering dust, of a dust, of universe. Old men plowing the field, women used as animals and animals as vegetables. No smiles, just screams, said Emphy, while scurrying behind the god with horror. The god was burning with heavenly fires. Emphy sensed the danger and took him back to heaven. I will end it. I will end them all these dreadful, degenerate waste. The gods were right. There is no peace and balance without authority, without chains. These are all lies. I will end this kind. Please don't. They have not decay. Calm down. There must be a way. You just saw greedy, sinful beings. Even the demons down there are better than them. Emphy hung her head. We will have to make them care. They must feel what others feel even though they have not experienced it. Their blood must soften and flesh ought to get warm. Empathy, compassion, yes, that would get them to see. They are now blind. I give them my empathy. I make them kind. That struck out to the god. Kind? No, only you have that. Only you have that power. If you give them, they will become potential gods. May every fool be God. Then a god be fool. And she flew and flew and flew. He called, shouted, but now there was only one way to go. Emphy drowned into the earth, turned into sparks and rained, blessing it and once it carry with kindness and good, but bereft the gods of the same. It glimmered into endless skies, while the god stood with a faint face. With grieving eyes said he, remember, mates, remember the goddess who lives in you. Remember her sacrifice. Remember your freedom. Collect all shells. Sail every sea. Smell every green. Conquer the blue. Live it like the gods. But for your forgotten kind and the new ones that may come, be kind. Don't worry, you are nothing, we are nothing, and you will remain nothing. But if you try very hard, maybe one day your kind will become a nice scene in this endless grand play. Then the great gods would come and enjoy that scene. And after, they will get bored like always, and they will end it. I hope that when that end comes, you be holding hands, waiting for the settling end. And smiling.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be